Felix here, and welcome to this pre-market crash live stream. Everyone's freaking out, everyone's panicking. My intention is here to calm you down and to show you that there are opportunities in this wonderful volatility that we're being delivered today by El Presidente. I want to walk you through it. What are the tariffs? What are they actually? It's important to understand that. Why are they there? How bad this is and how bad is it going to get? How long the tariffs will be in place, and I can actually, I've written this down, there we go. Why the US will actually win this particular war, and you can disagree with me on that, but I tell you why I think it is. And there is something much bigger than tariffs happening here that no one's talking about, very, very important. How we profit from it, that's probably the part you're most interested in, and then some other huge events that I'm watching this week. See, I told you I was going to take the piss out of this president, just like the last one. So, anyone here feeling a little bit antsy, bitsy, worried this morning? A little bit, uncomfortable this morning that the portfolio is red, and redder? Well, let me know in the chat. Okay, just put a smiley in there that reflects how you're feeling this morning. I quite like to see that. And this is pre-market. It's a bloodbath. And why is he in such a good mood? Because VIX trade's going to make some money, isn't it? There is always a way to make money, and I want to show you some of that today as well and explain some of that to you. I'm still working on another video where we go through what's actually going to be the biggest beneficiary from the tariffs, because there's a lot of beneficiaries from this, a lot of stuff that we might want to be buying this week, and that video is coming out in a couple of hours after this. So make sure you are subscribed if you're not, and a lot of you are feeling a little bit queasy. Okay, brilliant. Well, then we have a good attention span here. All right. So first of all, what happened in 2018 when the chosen one, the orange one, the president you elected, put tariffs in place? He did so on a fateful day that I'm sure you all remember, which was the 22nd of February, 2018. I had to look this up. Obviously, I don't remember such random pieces of information. And how much did we drop by? We dropped a wonderful 11% on the NASDAQ. QQQ this is. Did it last very long? About 14 trading days. So just under 3 weeks. So look forward to a little bit of a wobble period here. Fox, thanks for that link there to yesterday's video. Appreciate that. And what happened afterwards? Well, we rallied back up, we bent back down again, and then we went up and up and up and up and up and up and up. I mean, the QQQ was trading at 169 then, right? Where are we right now? 500 or something? So was it a golden buy the dip opportunity? Absolutely more. Is that opportunity today? I don't think so. That was just my opinion on this. But as I'm going to explain to you what this is and how we make money out of this, the most important thing really, and Fox has reminded me of that, is that if you're feeling queasy, and a lot of you guys are feeling queasy, I'm loving the emojis here, take it as the push. Most of us need some pain in our life to actually change something. I certainly needed it. I used to be that guy. I got a lot of pain, which is what made me into the investor that I am today. Without that pain, I probably wouldn't be here. So in hindsight, the pain was good. At the time, the pain was pretty horrible. It's physical pain, not just market and money pain. So use the pain, listen to it, and learn. And one thing that I can offer you is watch the masterclass, where I teach you how I make money. felixfriends.org/get free. The link is down below. The tariffs are twofold: 10% on China and Canadian energy products, oil, gas, gasoline, all that kind of stuff, various forms of oil products. 25% on everything else from Canada and Mexico. So that's basically the baseline here, right? So less on oil and gas, which is probably a smart move. And does the US have high tariffs on the world? These are the tariffs in place by some of the larger economies out there. Some of you Brits, I think, are watching here. You have higher tariffs than the US. The Mexicans have significantly higher tariffs than the US. South Africa is Brazil, here is Korea, and India. Only Japan, out of the major sort of economies, has lower tariffs than the US. So you could look at this as just sort of a level playing field. And again, I'm not a Trump apologist. I'm just saying, let's understand the data points here, right? So how bad is this? Well, say you are a US importer, and let me run you through a number example here. I think that makes it really, really, really clear. Say you pay $100 for your Canadian products, you know, the mousse you've always wanted on the wall. I know Canada doesn't just, you know, sell mousse. Maple syrup too, I think. So with the tariffs, that would now go up to $125, right? So that's a 25% increase, but not so fast. That isn't actually how this works. What is the first thing you would do if you are a US importer and you've had that business relationship with your Canadian counterpart for 10 years? You'd say, dude, can you give me a discount? Because otherwise I'm going to have to start shopping around for another supplier. And maybe you get a 10% discount, right? Now the tariff is only 12.5%. That's something. Okay, Canada doesn't feel so good about that, but nothing's really changed here. The step two, though, and most suppliers will give you some discount. Depends on the product, how big that's possible, you know. Big moose. Yes, absolutely. We got moose emojis. Amazing, amazing. Put a moose emoji in the chat here if this makes some sense to you. Put a moose emoji in the chat. Currencies. What happened to my currency chart? Microsoft ate my currency chart. Seriously, that was a chart just now. Oh dear. Okay. Well, what was I trying to show you? Is that the Canadian currency or the Mexican currency are down about 25%. Why? This dollar, the USD, gets stronger with these tariffs. So in actual reality, I'm loving all the moose. What's the plural of moose? Moose, mice, you know, something like that. Canadians. So let's just say your friendly Canadian moose supplier gives you that 10% discount, and your Mexican tequila supplier, that's the only thing that they sell. I'm joking, right? So, or lose my business forever, which most suppliers don't want to do. So let's say they give you 10%. So you go from $100, which is about 235 Canadian. Now you go to 121. That's your 10% discount, okay? That's 10% discount from your friendly moose supplier. So in US dollars, that's $83.40. You add the 25% tariff, now it costs you $104. Maybe I'm a bit quick on the numbers here, but essentially what I'm saying is there is a possibility that the present tariffs are about 5% in reality because the Canadian dollar is dumped as a result of seeing these tariffs coming. So that could be not as bad as you think. Now, is it going to get worse? Well, the Canadians are, and that is, in fairness, maybe a little optimistic. It might be that Canadian moose suppliers are not quite as generous with their margins. I don't know what the gross margin on a moose is nowadays, or on maple syrup, or in avocados. But so that might be a little optimistic. But let me show you this. The Canadians are crying moose at the moment. I was going to say wolf. These are some of the tariffs that Canada has on US products. 270% on milk, 245% on cheese, 160% on barley, 100% on vegetables, shoes 30%, tobacco 100%, copper 48%, vacuums. You get the idea. Pretty high tariffs, right? 20% on lumber and so on. So they are protecting their industries, and it's right. It's a free country, right? So what does that mean? Well, it means that the tariffs, and this is what JP Morgan put out this morning, they will cause a recession, also in the US, but in Canada and Mexico. So Canada's standing up and going, we're going to fight back. We're going to hit you with more tariffs. It's going to make sure that they get hit with more tariffs, and it's going to put Canada into a very, very serious recession, because Canada exports much, much more to the US than the US imports from Canada. And I'll show you the numbers in a second as well. Melatonics, I'm joking about the maple syrup. I know that it all comes from, was it Maine or someone like that? Did the tariffs make your program more expensive? No, I don't think so. I checked. Services are not affected by this. So we'll circle back onto this in a second. But this is actually something that people are not talking about. And I tweeted this yesterday. Do we still tweet, or do we X now? Yeah, services are not usually tariffed. It's fairly unusual. At the moment, I certainly haven't done that. The biggest loophole in the China tariffs, the US tariffs on Chinese imports, has been something called the de minimis rule. De minimis, and it's probably minimis, one of the few moments where the Americans still use Latin. That basically means a parcel under $800 goes tax-free, tariff-free. Now, the US receives 4 million such parcels a day. 4 million. That's 1 billion parcels a year come in with allegedly less than $800 in them, which is, as you can figure out, at $800 a piece, potentially, say, 800 billion, right? $800 billion in goods. Now, Trump has instructed US Customs to enforce this rule very strictly and inspect. So all of that stuff that you're ordering off some sort of Amazon-like thing in the US comes in this way, that's going to stop. That is actually far, far bigger because it closes the biggest loophole in the US. That's the real thing that's hitting China right now. It's not the tariff. It's actually this. It's just closing that loophole. That's very, very, very big. Yeah, Temu and Shein and all these places this is huge. Huge even, right? So that's a really big one. So this is actually a little bit more serious than what you think there at the top. So what do we do with that information? Well, this is what I look at. When the markets tank, the good old options trader in me, or the volatility futures trader in me, looks at the VIX. And I know some people are going to run away because I'm talking about VIX. But what is VIX? It's the fear index. And it tells you how much the market's going to move by each day. So at 20, it's a 1% move a day. At 30, it's about 2. At 40, it's about 2.5, and so on. At 70, it's 4.4% a day, which is insane. So where are we right now on the VIX? Let's have a look, because that's actually what matters here. Let me open a chart of good old VIX. There is VIX. And right now, we're at 19.6, which actually isn't that bad. On Friday. Is that Friday? That, yeah. So we were at one point at 20 today. These are futures. They trade from 7 a.m. New York time, I think. No, sorry, 6 p.m. Sunday. That's when they start trading, I think. I could be slightly wrong on that. So that's elevated. And we have a VIX trade open on that. That's up 100% right now. Not making us massive amounts of money yet, but eventually they will. We're up about 112% on this right now. So there is always a way to make money out of these things, and this is, by the way, very, 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 very predictable. I'm thinking about writing some sort of guide on this because it's a little complex, but it's something that's very, very easy to make money out of. So what do we do with that? Well, when you are above 20 on the VIX, we might start shorting VIX, which is kind of an interesting concept. Certainly, if it goes above 30, we'll definitely short the heck out of it. If it was 40, we put the farm on it. And again, I'm not telling you to do that, but that's what I would do, because it's a thing that always goes down. It's not something that goes up. It's just something that over time will always go down. So it's not possible to stay at elevated levels for a very, very long period unless absurd amount of cataclysmic events were to happen every other day, which is highly unlikely. Yes, please write that guide. Okay, I started on it today, and then I got a little sidetracked by Tallulah. So where can you find that chart? This chart here, inside Trade Vision, my friend. I'll put the link in here for you. You might need to sign up to. Can I put that in? Can't put that in. There's a Trade Vision link down below. There it is, felixprehn.com/Trade Vision. There's a free trial to it as well, so you can play around with that. And yeah, some of my students here, are saying, love the VIX, been the best money maker for me over the last year, says Logan. Yeah, it's one of those things that's wonderful. So we set up a trade where we make money when it goes up, because it tends to very regularly. And then when it's gone up a lot, we make money on the way down. It's just one of those things. And is that something that comes naturally to you? No. Is that something that you can figure out on your own? I very much doubt it. And there are a lot of things like that where you just actually need somebody to explain it to you, I think. And what's holding people back from having this explained to them? Well, most of us are, we just don't really want to ask for directions, right? We're a bit embarrassed if we don't know stuff. We want to be like, yeah, I know, I figured it out. I've got it. I mean, that used to be me, very much so. I would never ask for directions. I would just be lost for very, very long periods of time, which in hindsight is a stupid thing to do. But it's just, you know, I think a lot of us guys get embarrassed if we don't know something. Somehow we assume that we should know everything, and we don't. And the only way you get smarter is by asking the simple questions. And no dumb questions, they're only simple questions. And if you can think of a simple question, please ask it. And then you'll get better. And what a lot of our students have done, certainly since yesterday, they've just hopped on a one-on-one call with an investment banker inside our program, one of our head coaches, who's been through bigger dips and bigger crashes, and will not only be able to tell you how you can actually protect your money here, but also line up the opportunities that are coming up. And that's really, really, really important. So preparation and improving our gray matter up there is actually what makes you money in these situations. And that's what makes you wake up and go, brilliant, it's a marvelous day, the market's crashing, fantastic. Is it crashing? I mean, at this point, it isn't a crash. But yeah, we're looking at more than a percentage point down on the indices, which is definitely significant, and a bit more on the more volatile stocks like your Tesla and your Nvidias. Now, as I said, I will put out a full video on exactly which stocks I think will benefit from this. I think on the surface, you'd think that things like Teslas, for example, who have factories in Mexico, and so it would hit them pretty hard. I actually think if you think this through and where this is going, I don't think these tariffs are here just because of fentanyl or a bit of trade warring or something like that. But it's, in my opinion, because he actually fundamentally has eaten my chart again. Isn't that nice? Microsoft, we thank thee. Look, it's eaten all the charts. Is it censorship or what? I think Bill Gates must have heard me talking about him. Can we refresh this? Can we refresh this? Probably. Let's try. We might come back to it, but I can tell you in the meantime, regardless. So, in my opinion, what this is all about is replacing the government revenue in the US from domestic income tax to taxing imports. And the current tariffs we're talking about make these permanent. And I think they will be permanent, as Microsoft is doing its usual thing, not working at all. Hey? If these become permanent, these tariffs will raise somewhere between 1 and 3 trillion a year. Estimates vary widely on that one. But how much is income tax? How much is income tax revenue in the US? Anybody know? Anybody know how much income tax the US brings in? 2.3 trillion a year. 2.3 trillion. So if you can bring in somewhere between 1 and 3 trillion, you're pretty close to income tax elimination. And what you could do with that is you could spark the biggest freaking rally in the market that the market has ever seen. Where are we? We have a lot of charts we didn't see before. No, it's still the censorship is alive. All right. Oh, wow. I just have to tell you. So I think that's the story the market's missing. So much like in 2018, we panicked for 14 days, and then we'd be like, woo, this is actually not so bad. We're still alive. And I think the same thing is going to happen here. So I think buying good companies, buying good stocks, buying the companies that are more likely to benefit from higher tariffs, and therefore demand moving domestically rather than overseas, I think works very well. The US also has a massive trade deficit with Canada and Mexico. So for Mexico, about 35% of their exports go to the US. For the US, about 1 to 2% of their exports go to Mexico. Same for Canada. So who's going to win this fight? Yeah. Mexico and Canada should not fight back. It is not smart. They should just go, I'm sorry, what foot can we kiss? Eventually, they come to that conclusion. KK, you think the income tax won't go away? Well, I think the national debt thing, Elon's taken care of that. And I have quite a lot of faith in Elon. He's so far eliminated about 4 billion in spending a day. If he gets it to 6, the deficit is basically a goner. So I think he's going to achieve that. And it just means you can actually cut taxes. Like, you don't need to raise extra revenue because you're just wasting less. You're spending less. You stop spending $50 million on condoms for Gaza, which is not necessarily the best thing to do. Also makes no sense given that it's a Muslim country. And celibacy is apparently a big thing there. So CAT will benefit. Yeah, I agree with you on that. Palantir earnings today. Yeah, exactly. That was my last chart here. It was going to be earnings, which I can't show you because Microsoft has eaten the charts, but maybe I can find it in my feed on X. We post quite a lot. We're actually even live on, look, there we are. We're live on X too. How exciting is that? Where is it? Here it is. And Palantir today after the market, that's a big deal for sure. Tomorrow morning, PayPal. Tomorrow evening, AMD and Google. And then Wednesday, Uber, Arm, Amazon on Thursday. These are bigly events to watch out for. And of course, on Palantir, we want them not just to tell us how beautiful the future is going to be. We need them to actually show us numbers that show that they're growing faster than the market's expecting. That's the only way Palantir stock's going to stay up where it is right now. We'd have to have a 10 to 50% national consumption tax. No, you just have to have tariffs, which is a similar thing. So tariffs are a little bit like value-added tax. It's a little bit like that. It's just a tax on sort of everything foreign, which can bring in a lot of revenue. There's no doubt about that. And all the economic kind of research papers show that it does actually support domestic industry in a country as big as the US, because you pretty much have such massive domestic demand that you can sustain all these industries. It doesn't work if you're like a teeny tiny island, obviously. Not interested in a firm? Yeah, not massively. It's interesting, I think, but no, I'm not massively interested in it, I have to say. You have a Palantir insurance trade for us. I think this close to earnings, my friend, that is a difficult thing to do. I mean, other than buying a put option, which is super expensive right now. What do you want to be doing? Sell a call? But you need a lot of margin for that, which is the problem with selling a call. I mean, I'm just thinking about insurance, right? You know, do a bear call or something. Might lose you money, entirely possible. So it's a bit on the risky side, not necessarily great. What could you do? Sell 2 calls. Again, not brilliant. It's the unlimited loss thing that isn't really. It's hard to do something on the day of earnings. You kind of need to like do that about 10 days before, when you have still a little bit of wriggle room. Can you buy a leap put? Yeah, of course. Yeah, you can buy a put that's out, years if you want. Strange decision, because in the long run the market always goes up. So you must have some insight that a company is really going to go bankrupt. You just don't know when. Otherwise, it would be a very odd thing to do. Have you exited your MSTR position? I have not, my friend, and I'm not saying that's necessarily the smart thing to do. Actually, have I? No, I haven't. Now, my position on that, it's a small percentage of portfolio, and it's a leap call which has more than a year to go. I do think we're going to get positive crypto news coming out of this administration, and if you just think this through, like, how do tariffs affect Bitcoin? It just what's the connection? It's like, or Bitcoin mined by Moose in Canada? No, it's not. So there isn't really a connection. So sometimes, if you understand the connection, the lack thereof, I certainly take a view on some things and I go, I'm okay with that. My risk exposure is that because it's a relatively small position, and therefore I'm good. And that's why I sometimes buy these leap options, because I can put in a small amount of money. Worst case scenario, I lose, say, half of it. And in the nice upside could be 10x, 20x. So that's precisely why I do it that way. Felix, what's stopping Canadian companies selling to Japan and then selling it to the US? The law. These kind of import rules are not that simple. So it's basically, where is the product manufactured? Where is at least 51% of value added? That's the way it's done. So you can't just ship it somewhere and then ship it back. It doesn't work. And then you also have to pay shipping costs, which might be more than the 25%, especially if you ship to Japan, which is an expensive place to ship to. You should be buying the crypto dip. I wouldn't quite yet, but of course it's up to you. But I wouldn't quite yet. I think things could get a little hairier. So I have sent money to my broker, but I have not deployed any money to my broker because, let's say, if you look at 2018, it took us 14 trading days to reach the bottom of that fear thing. So I think we could go a little lower, especially if the Canadians and Mexicans. And I mean the snow Mexicans and the Mexicans get a little bit nutty and think that they're big and powerful, important, and put tariffs on American things, which just seems to be the way they're going. Not a smart move when 30% of your GDP depends on the US and you only import. You're only about 1 to 2% of the economy the other way around. And the other thing I think people don't quite understand on this, you might not like Trump. I totally get that. I mean, the man certainly. It's not, like he's a strange character, and he, does some odd things and says some odd things. But he's a very, very, very good negotiator. And I will say this about a lot of politicians, where I really hate what they do, and I'll say they're a very good politician, as in they're very good at the art of being a politician. Trump is insanely good at negotiating. Famously, when the Chinese wanted to buy the Plaza Hotel, he made them buy another plot, I think on the Hudson, which they didn't want, and so they paid him twice the money. And he was tinkering on the edge of bankruptcy. So he's very, very good at this. And he knows that all the cards in the US is all the cards. So a lot of the imports that come from Mexico, the cars, right, they're not actually made in Mexico. They're assembled in Mexico, but a lot of the components come either from the US or from China. But quite a lot of them come from the US. So the US ships components to Mexico where it's cheaper to assemble, and they ship them back. So there's an assembly plant in Mexico. Not a huge value add. And it's something that if you put these tariffs in for long enough and high enough, companies like Tesla will just relocate. And they'll just use robots to do it in the US at maybe slightly higher cost. But what happens to Mexico is that they lose all the jobs, all the tax revenue from it, and it hits them really, really, really hard. So this whole pride thing that's going on there with the Canadians and the Mexicans, it's not smart. Like, if you go into a fight, you need to know that you can win, and they can't. So they're definitely going to lose here. So it's a question of just when, not if. Trump's great as a bully. Yes, absolutely. He's definitely a bully, and he's very, very, very good at it. And you're going to see a lot of people caving in, and you might not agree with that, and that's completely fine. It's not the way I run my life, not the way I do my businesses. But you have to acknowledge he's very, very skilled at that, and so he's going to get his way. Someone says, hate the guy, but I'll make money from him if I can. I think that's the right attitude here. Polarizing, absolutely. Very, very polarizing. And again, that's a skill, right? He does that so he gets free media. We send our foundries to Mexico. We can't make engine blocks. Well, you can, just a question of incentive, right? It's all a question of incentive. So the point here is it shifts incentives. It shifts incentives to manufacturing things in the US because you just make the other countries more expensive. And Mexico is also a huge reroute for Chinese goods, which is also why this is going on. I thought we had a thing called NAFTA. Well, agreements come and go, right? It's a bit like, when NAFTA came in, you could have said, oh, I thought we had had tariffs. So trade comes in swings and roundabouts, and at the moment it's going down. And all we have to do, our job is not to be outraged about it. Our job is just to look at the facts, look at the reality of what's going on out there, and then look at how best placed are we to make money from it and protect our money, because that's ultimately what it's about. So if you have positions that are bleeding badly, get out of them. That would be my thought on it, because things can get a lot worse, and then you'll probably sell when it's a lot worse, which will hurt you a lot more. So you need to have exit rules. You need to have automated exit rules. Otherwise, otherwise you're gambling. So that would be my thought on that. Our VIX trade's up 100%. That's pretty much the only thing that's up to date. 17% up to date so far. Patrick, fully correct, Mr. Gopal. Yeah, that's all point of view. It doesn't really matter. I mean, you just have to face the reality that there are now tariffs, and the tariffs aren't going to go away because it's a bit like taxation. Nobody likes to give up the revenue. So the question is just how high will they go? I think that's really the question here. And that'll depend on how quickly do Canada and Mexico give in. How long do you think markets will recover from this? Well, judging by 2018, that was 14 trading days, so almost 3 weeks. This one will probably be a little bit quicker because people will still remember 2018. So if something has happened recently, the market remembers it, and then it doesn't act quite as idiotically and irrationally as it did then. So Nasdaq is down 1.7% here, which is it's a big drop, but it's also the same thing we saw like a week ago on the 27th. So it isn't like unprecedented. We're still in the same zone, support resistance. Support sits at 510 right now, and that line comes from where? It comes from Trade Vision, which is our app that we built to give you insanely good data. We bounced off that support level here on the 27th of Jan. At the moment, we're still above that, and we're actually inching up a little bit. So the dip bias might even come in today. It's entirely possible, but I'm going to hold my powder dry here today because I would always rather be a day late than be 2 weeks too early on a sell-off. Should you short some stocks? Should you do bearish trades? My rule, and I think that's kind of what I learned from my mentors, is in moments of uncertainty, do nothing and just sit on your hands because you just don't know. I mean, it could be that we end the day % higher, and then everything is wonderful and everyone's just sort of like, it goes with the flow. You just don't know. So just the morning, so far we've had, 5% of the day's trading volume, and you have no idea which way this is going to go yet. So if I have no idea which way it's going to go, what do? I do nothing and maybe pair some losers. That's the way I would look at that. And at the moment, the only winner we have is our VIX trade. Buy the dip slowly. That's also an approach. Absolutely, that's also an approach. You could nibble. You could also look at things like moving average lines and just say, are we below anything meaningfully yet? We're below the 50. I think a real opportunity as a dip buyer on the Nasdaq is when you're below the 150, like we were in September or in August. I think those are kind of pretty much statistically proven long-term buy moments where we just kind of have to buy. We're not quite there yet, so that would take us down another 20 points. If we do that, then I would definitely load up the boat on QQQ, and I was kind of thinking that might happen, but at the moment that isn't happening yet. Most clear example of a company that will benefit from tariffs. I mean, I think there are a lot of them. As I say, I'm still working on a video which is going to come out later today in a couple of hours. So make sure you're subscribed, and I'll run through a lot of companies there. It depends very much on the next step, right? Trump likes to play things close to his chest, but he has hinted several times at eliminating income tax. If that's what he does with the tariff money, so he makes the Canadians and the Mexicans and to the importers to some extent pay that tax, you would then be able to eliminate most of income tax. That would create massive, massive bull markets. And there is a lot of sectors, a lot of stocks that specifically benefit from that. But even if he wasn't going to do that, there's certainly companies like Caterpillar will be an obvious one, right? It means Caterpillar, the digging machines you see around, they'd be made in the US. Now, there might be some margin pressure on some of that stuff, but still in the long term, that would be a company that I think would be a clear beneficiary from this. Has the stock done anything? Probably the whole thing is selling off. Like everything is selling off in moments like these, which is entirely, that's down 2%, which makes sort of very little sense. I mean, it's just one of those moments where absolutely everything is down below the 150 right now. So again, I'd be a little bit careful. Schwab account won't open, probably because everyone's logging in. I'm logged in, thankfully. Visa, yeah, that's always a stock that tends to do pretty well. Federal income tax. Yes, of course, the states can still levy income tax, but that's your choice, right? Where you live. The federal income tax isn't really a choice. That definitely isn't a choice. So honestly, what would I say to you? And Fox, maybe we could put that link in the chat as well. It's moments like this unsettle you. They unsettle you because you lack, if we're honest about it, strategy, risk management, and a deeper understanding of what's going on in markets. And once you have that, you will what? Be able to make better decisions. You will stop losing money on avoidable things, and you will spot opportunities that are there every single day. And my goal here with our community is to do exactly that and give you the tools, give you the actual skills to be able to make better decisions. And a little bit also give you the motivation, because it's all about motivation in life. Like, anybody can learn to become an amazing investor, an amazing trader, because it isn't that difficult. It isn't rocket science. It doesn't take a lot of time. You don't need to be an expert. You don't need tons of money. You don't need lots of time. None of those things are true. But what holds us back, in my humble opinion, is we just don't want to ask a silly question. We don't want to look like, or admit that we don't know something fully. But the beautiful thing now with being online and online learning and so on, you don't have to put a poster out in front of your house and say, I'm a beginner investor, although that's completely fine if you did. You can just learn in the privacy of your own home. You can start with a masterclass if you want some more help. That'll also show you how you could get some more help from us if you wanted to. And loads of you guys have jumped on one-on-one calls and our group sessions and our coaching program with my mentors who are retired investment bankers, hedge fund managers, guys who mentioned pension funds, and people with a lot of experience. How and when do we get back into stocks and we lose? Well, I think VIX is really probably the one thing that I would look at, and I walked through that at the top of the video just when I sort of showed you where we are calm. So a VIX below 20, we are pretty seriously Microsoft software, the best of its kind, right? Below 20, we're pretty chilled. Right now, VIX is 1888, so this isn't panic station yet. 15, it's very calm seas. So that kind of tells you how much the market's moving. So I would just kind of wait and see where it settles today. At the moment, it's up 15% today, so it's definitely a big move. And everything is down, of course. Tesla is now down almost 5%. SoFi is down 4%. Everything is basically down, and that's okay. That's Microsoft's flat, for example. Not everything is getting hit that hard. And you will also see that, and again, that's predictable to see which stocks are kind of the stable places. So you see when shit hits the fan, pardon my French, stocks like Meta and Microsoft tend to attract a lot of funds because they're seen as reliable, high cash flow, predictable kind of businesses. And then the more volatile stocks like Nvidia and Tesla, for example, tend to dump a lot more, right? Now, if you know that, you could do something with that knowledge in advance. On the day, it's a little harder. Scott says rules matter. Absolutely. Getting stopped out of position, says Scott. Yeah, and that's okay. That's just part of it, right? Nothing wrong with that. Next, Netflix just turned green, which is nice, or at least at 0. Bitcoin is at 92K, now it's at 96. Yeah, I kind of feel like 90 might sort of be the low point there. At least that's my impression. Fox. I know it's not as bad as I thought. I mean, Nvidia getting hit. Yeah. Tesla getting hit. Not really quite sure why Tesla's being singled out like that, but it's just, when you become more politically exposed, that's kind of what happens. Amazing time to pick up more shares, says Peter. Yeah, if your time frame is long enough and you have regular cash flow, then you can just nibble at every opportunity. Nothing wrong with that. I'm going to wait till tomorrow with my nibbling, and that may or may not be the right decision. But in hindsight, it won't help me. Hindsight doesn't help. It doesn't exist in real decision time. So for me, it's just one of those things. The VIX jumps up 15% in a day. I'm pretty much sitting on my hands. I'm pretty much doing nothing. I let my stops do its thing. And we have a VIX trade open already. That's up 106% right now. So we're good. MasterCard's up. SoFi's getting hit. Yeah, SoFi's down 4.3% right now. If you think this through, do these tariffs affect financial services? No. Does SoFi have a huge amount of customers in Canada or in Mexico? No. Is any of this matter at all? No. Is Trump just, has he just appointed somebody who's insanely banking friendly as the regulator? Yes. So does it make sense? No, it doesn't. But that's how the market moves. So you have to come to a rule-based decision on whether or not you want to buy at these levels. Generally speaking, for me, something gaps down, no matter what the reason is, I kind of wait. There could be some things we could do with it. Volatility is pretty low, for example. So it might be a moment to buy some long call options at a low price. That could be a thing to do, average down a little bit. I'm not saying you should do that, but there are things that like that we can do. We can take advantage of certain opportunities that we are given. Do you have a feeling this will continue this week, Peter? I can only go by history. When this happened in 2018, 22nd of February, when Trump put in the first tariffs on China, it lasted 14 trading days, so almost 3 entire weeks. This one should be shorter, because normally the market remembers and then it does it shorter the next time around. But it's entirely possible that it goes on for a week. Plus, he hasn't announced tariffs yet on Europe, for example, right? That's also coming. Say Canada really does retaliate back like they said they have yesterday, or they're doing that in kind of stages a bit more slowly. Trump's likely to up the ante. Same with Mexico. So this could get a little bit worse. And the only thing the market really hates about this is the uncertainty. Like, where is it going to go? Where is it going to end? So when it settles in a little bit, settles down a bit, that's when the markets recover. Uber bankruptcy because of robo-taxis. I think their margins will improve because they'll be able to take more of the cut of the drive because they'll just use Tesla robo-taxis. Uber's already said that they want to buy Tesla robo-taxis. So no, I think what people underestimate there is a bit like Airbnb, the power of that network. The fact that we all have Uber installed on our phone is insanely valuable because how do you motivate hundreds of millions of people to install your app? Pretty expensive thing to do. You typically have to pay for that, pay referrals, advertise. It takes years and years and years. So there is a lot of value in that. And Tesla is going to sell them robo-taxis, that's for sure. Do you think Canada should bow down to Trump? Yes. Leave the hat, abandon their pride, and come to the table. And you know why? I don't have the exact number to fingerprint, but this is Canada, right? Canada. This is the US. Canada sends about 30% of its GDP comes from the US. The other way around, it's about 1.5%. The US does not need Canadian consumers. Canada does need American consumers. So it's a lose-lose for Canada. They just have to bow down. It's a really sad, and it's also hypocrisy because Canada already has massive tariffs on American food products, alcohol products, farming, agricultural products, forestry products, copper, steel, you name it. Very high tariffs, 100% plus in some cases. So, you know, this is kind of like political grandstanding that only hurts the Canadians. Amy, tariffs are regressive. Yes, it's true. Like value-added tax as well. They hits the poorest the hardest, which is why the logical thing would be to take the tariff money and eliminate income tax for the lowest earners completely and reduce it for the highest earners somewhat. Now, is that going to happen? I don't know. That's politics. Maple syrup. You guys have maple syrup in the US, don't you? In Maine or somewhere? I was up there once, and you had lovely maple syrups and those very thick pancakes with the blueberries in it. That was very nice. Where was I? I was in Martha's Vineyard. You had a lot of maple syrup there. Will the US send military to Panama? No, I don't think so. I think they already got the win they wanted. They're getting free transit for the US Navy. And Panama is leaving the Silk Road thing. So I think that's probably the win that was aimed for there. Vermont, yes, that's the place. Vermont, that's the place. New Hampshire as well. Okay, it's lovely up there, at least in the summer. I've not been there in the winter. It might be a bit cold for me, but then I'm too much cold in my life. Audio says 35 states have Canada as their principal commercial partner. Yeah, that's true, but those are not really the powerhouse states, let's be honest, right? So they're not really the states that export a lot of stuff to other places. The East Alaskans. No super great buys. Yeah, I don't think the dip is like enormous. So I'm not sort of like, oh my God, you gotta get this. I mean, SoFi is down at $15. Yeah, you know, but we were there at like on the 28th. Tesla. Let's see if we can find some opportunities here today. Tesla is down 4%. Yeah, also sort of neither here nor there, really, I'd say. Have a look at the screen. What's down? What's down the most? Other way around. Riot 6% upset, General Motors 6%. Well, that's probably actually rational. Core Dow. You see, there are no huge moves, right? There are no double-digit drops on this, so people are not panicking here, which is a little bit of a shame, really, because that always creates a nice opportunity. Now, what's actually up today? Some Chinese stocks, yeah, because people were expecting higher tariffs on China than they've got right now. So we'll see what happens over there. Etsy, Visa, Master, yeah, so there's a little bit of that. Netflix is flat, which we have a trade open on. So yeah, it's almost an uneventful panic, if you can have one of those. Give me the 1 to 3 risk reward, Scottish guy. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I'm not really seeing it yet. I mean, Tesla goes down a little lower. I think there could be an opportunity there. Lululemon, yeah, that's true. But it's all made in China, isn't it? Isn't it all made in China? Scott, morning silence session. Appreciate you. My ABC pants are about to get expensive. Any questions, my friends? Put them in the chat. And if you don't know what to do with this yourself this morning, then do the one thing, and that's improve the stuff between your ears, which is your knowledge center and your skill center. So hop over and watch the masterclass and actually learn how we spot those breakouts. And you can also get yourself the breakout indicator that we have inside TradeVision that we've built in, which saves me hours of every month. You won't find many breakouts today, I imagine, but you never know. You never know. RBC bearings, oh, that still exists. Interesting. Yeah, that does actually look quite good. I think financials will do quite well over the next couple of months. And Atlassian, that also looked quite good. I also quite like that setup. Same come, everyone. VIX, wait for gamma or close. You got to set yourself a target there. It depends also on how long your VIX trade is. If it's a Feb trade, it probably is a good time to take some profits. Mine's a March trade, so I might hold on to it. We'll see. Exercise your body and mind. Change your state changes everything. Absolutely. Well said, AG. A lot of buy the dips here. It's 45 days, only in a third. Yeah, and you know, just have a look at your time value there, Scott. That's what I would do. Just like, you know, is it often greed is what costs us the money, right? It's better to take decent profit than to take no profit down the road. Just saying. Red days are the best days. Rimantas, you're not well, my friend. Okay, very sorry to hear that. Yeah, absolutely. Contact Yanni. We will get you some help, my friend. Whatever you need. And Scott, right? Yeah, I mean, I think it's a question of risk reward. Like my trade right now is at about 12% of its potential gain. I think if it was double that, I'd get out of it. But right now, seems a little premature. I'm sure Donald's got some things up his sleeves to create some more VIX spikes for us over the next couple of weeks. Go for a walk today. Don't stress too much. I think that's also a good thing to do. Absolutely. And Coca-Cola. Yeah, that's an interesting one, isn't it? That's sort of on sale here, down 1%. I mean, it's more of a yielding stock. And again, look at the dip. Isn't that great, right? We were in January. We were at $2 lower, so it's no longer a falling knife, which I think is the good story here. But we're still below the 150. I don't like buying things below the 150 unless it is sort of a hold till death do us part kind of story. So if you're planning on holding Coca-Cola for like 10 years or 20 years, then yeah, buy it below the 150 and you'll probably do quite well with it. But if you're short term, then I would think it over. Keep calm, absolutely. You're 1,000% wrong about Canada. The arrogance will have a price, says Mark. You're Canadian, my friend. You explain what you mean. I'm not quite sure what I'm wrong on, but I'm often wrong. Are you still in SoFi? Yup, I could say yes, absolutely. Still very much in SoFi and will continue to be in SoFi. I think finance stocks are going to have a very, very good year, but that's just my opinion. Got some cat leaps, interesting move. Scott, Costco, yeah, that's doing quite well today. Sold some Palantir before because of the uncertainties too much, and that's a very good thing to do. You have to always be aware of your own mindset, right? Like it's about, are you calm? Are you happy? Are you collected? Are you enjoying yourself? If you're not, if you have a position that's keeping you up at night, just get out. It's very simple. That's kind of the most fundamental rule. It's like, don't ever let anything stress yourself out. Would you buy AMD puts? No, and I'll tell you why. It's just that the industry, generally speaking, hasn't collapsed. And I don't go against the industry. So the industry in this case is the semiconductor industry. SOX is a good metric. And if you look at that stock chart, we haven't collapsed, right? Yes, we are no longer rallying like mad. It moves in phases, right? This was the rally phase. Now we're in the not so exciting consolidation phase, but I wouldn't short there. I would short if we dropped lower with a lot of freaking volume, then yes, but we're not. We're just basically bobbing sideways. So for that reason, I just wouldn't go against the industry trend. Would you buy a Tesla put? No. If volatility was a little higher, I might sell one, but no, I wouldn't buy it. Would you buy UPS right now? I don't think I'd ever buy UPS. So if I kept me up, so sold today, good for you, my friend. Jinx there. It's always the right thing to do. It's got to be about you, it's got to be about what you are happy with. Would you short the VU? No. The only time I would short the VU is if we actually go into a proper bear market. Now, this is a bear market. We're down 1.6%. Take this into perspective. We went up 25% last year. We went up 24% the year before. Does this look like a collapsing market to you? It's just zoom out, right? This is not a collapsing market. This is a movement so small you can barely make it out on the chart. So don't go against the trend. That's just my fundamental rule. Don't go against the trend. US dollar's getting stronger. Does it affect earnings results? It does, yes. Probably not Q4 because that was at that exchange rate, but it'll affect the next quarter. So it'll hit companies like Microsoft and Netflix, and a lot of the big tech stocks will get hit by that for sure. Do you like SoFi leaps if they're cheap? Yes. What range do you expect a Palantir to be in? You don't need to actually ask me. Just get yourself the trade vision, because it actually tells you. That's one of the cool features in that, is that if you open the stock and you look at when are the earnings, they are 3rd. So you go to the closest date possible to the 3rd up here. That's where the dates are. And then you see that blue zone there. That's an interesting thing we haven't seen before. Okay, there it is. Oh, interesting. The blue zone is the expected move. So you could, if you wanted to, put a line in there, and then you could see where the market's expecting SoFi to be. The market's expecting SoFi to be between 65 and 92. And that's not some sort of analyst who woke up and said, I have an idea. No, it's actually market positions. It's where the market is set up. So that's the move we're expecting. $13 up, about $13 down. Quite a lot. You want to add a 10-day MA into Trade Vision, says Bob. Really? What do you use the 10-day MA for? We're seeing red everywhere today. Yeah, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I thought this would be a lot worse, to be honest with you. It's a sell-off, definitely. But how much is QQQ down now? Nasdaq, which is probably 1.7%, still okay. How about the S&P, SPX? 1.4% down. I mean, it doesn't like scream, oh my God, sell the children sort of type thing, does it? If you look at our support resistance line, we are below 6,000. That's a little bit bad, not so good, more volatile. Basically, the market's going to get more volatile the further we move away from 6,000 in both directions. And that isn't great. But it also isn't horrid, because we were in the same place, for much of January. So we're below the 50-day moving average line. Yeah, not brilliant, but again, zoom out and try and spot the dip, right? It's a pretty small one. Doesn't mean it isn't going to get bigger, which is why I'm not doing anything today. It would be an easier choice. I hope they're listening, Steve. Yeah, Trudeau's got to fold. He's got to find a way to save his face and fold and beg and plead. It's the only way out for him, really. He doesn't really have a leg to stand on there. So I suspect that's going to happen at some point, unless he's a bit of a loon or just too proud, which definitely wouldn't help. IDEX breakout, really? Yeah, they just reported earnings this morning. I haven't read them yet. I do have a long-term IDEX position, 11% up. Very nice. Very, very nice. These guys do all the analytics when you take your pet to the vet, which are, generally speaking, a huge waste of time and money. But very nice. Very nice. So is that the breakout we wanted? Possibly. 50-day moving average line is moving up. We're below the 50. The candle looks pretty good. The question is how big volume will be today. You are facing here a fair bit of resistance around these guys here, right? They're going to slow your rally up a little bit, but it's definitely a very nice move. Canada has other options. It doesn't. Canada, 30% of your GDP is dependent on the US. 30%. For the US, you are about 1.5%. You're irrelevant. And for you, the US is 30% of your wealth. So you got to make friends. You got to kiss that hairy butt. The only way to deal with this. And you can be very proud, and you should be very proud. I'm sure it's a lovely country. I've not had the pleasure to visit yet. There's nothing against Canadians. It's just economic fact. Like, you don't have negotiating leverage here. A little bit on the oil refining and that kind of side, you have a little bit of leverage, but that's why he only gave you 10% tariffs on that. So I think that could be the deal you make, that give something, remove the oil and gas tariffs, and then live with a little bit of tariffs on everything else. That might be the way to go. When is the breakout indicator update on Trade Vision? Midday and end of the trading day. That's when we run it. Kev, you don't need that image. Okay, some of you think you can wait it out. Well, time will tell. Time will tell. I mean, who knows? At this point, we're all speculating, which is really the name of the game, isn't it? We just got to do it with some rules, with some risk management, and that way we don't lose our shirts. Tesla now down almost 6%. Interesting. I was hoping that it would tank a little bit more and it would spike volatility on Tesla, which could mean that we would sell options on Tesla and make a lot of easy money. But at the moment, we have not been rewarded for that, sadly. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to sell some puts, but at the moment, paying too little for that to really make sense. 380 puts, 9%. Not really quite the payoff that we wanted. Goldman, you think the Ukraine is going down with their head held high? How about with a couple of 100,000 of their children dead? That's what they're doing. The Ukraine is a total pawn here in the US-Russia thing. They're the real victims in this. The Ukrainian people. War never serves anybody. That's my opinion on that. But you know. Niagara Falls, I need to visit that. I do need to visit that. I have not been. I'd like to go very much so. IV only 54. Yeah, I know. It doesn't really do it for us, does it, Andy? We need something a little bit higher. So what are we going to do today? Well, we're going to chill. We're going to relax. We're going to enjoy the day. Hopefully, many of you are going to sit down and learn. Who's going to go watch the masterclass? Who's going to actually learn and improve your skills today? Anybody here? Anybody here? Put a 1 in the chat if you're going to do that. And I wish you a calm and happy and relaxed day. I hope our little therapy session has calmed minds a little bit here today. This could get a lot worse, he says, to cheer you up at the end of the stream. It could escalate, more retaliation, higher tariffs, and so on. And then really the question becomes, how long do the tariffs stay in place? I think they're permanent. They might lower them a little bit if these countries cave in, which I'm not sure that they will. And then there comes the opportunity for lower taxes. And I'll put out a video on that later on today, where I'll walk you through what stocks I think will benefit sort of 30, 40, 50, 60%, and how to play that game. So if you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, do. And thanks for you guys watching the masterclass here, because that's actually the one thing that I can do to really add some value. Like, today's news is always just today's news, but the way we get better is by learning the patterns, understanding the predictability of the market, because it's actually a very, very predictable thing. And that's how we get smarter. That's how we make more money. So check it out, felixprehn.org/get free. And I hope to see you live tomorrow. Take care.